Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
G'day and welcome to a practically perfect edition of Thrash and Treasure, the torture chamber musical comedy podcast that's one Yelp rating away from being supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And speaking of fragile, I'm broken. And I'm joined as unusual by my very special guest, Cockney sidekick, whose Cockney is so bad, she dances like a white mum, a very, very white mum. It's Caroline Sheen. How's it going?
I don't get the white mum thing.
Because you've got a Cockney that's so bad that you dance like a white mum, because white people dance really badly and mums and dads.
A cockney. Oh, I see.
Yeah, a Cockney sidekick whose Cockney is... If I have to explain it, it's not working. I'll rewrite the joke.
I don't get it.
That's all right.
I thought it was like because my accent was so bad, but
No.
it's cockney.
Yeah, that's because we're all old. We're all over 40 now. All of us, except Spencer. He's like 23, little brat. Goodness gracious me. Anyways, how's it going? You were just on the show last week.
Just say that. That's fine. Are you going to...
I'm like literally recording. This is the intro opening.
This is it.
This is
the
it.
Cockney thing.
I can use this. I can use all of this.
You can use it. You can use it. Of course you can.
It'd be hilarious because listeners will be like, "What the hell?" After are they still drunk after last week's roast?
Well, look, at least they might understand where you're coming from, Aaron. You know, with that joke because it did need explaining.
A lot of explaining. Anyways, you were just on the show last week. How are you going?
I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm good. It's been Easter and I gave up chocolate for Lent. And so I have eaten lots of it in the last 48 hours.
Yep.
Been good. It's been good.
That's great for the voice.
I think so. I'm never one of those people to give up phlegm and dairy and stuff when I'm in a show, unless I do have a problem. But I've been lucky on most shows that I haven't had to give up chocolate. Ha ha ha.
So I drink too much coffee that just eating chocolate just makes me feel so glaggy or claggy or whatever the term is. Just it makes me feel.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee. Bleh.
Oh, I do.
It tastes like just nasty stuff. I've tried so hard to drink coffee, but it just tastes nasty.
Well, we're off to a good start today, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 a.m. in Australia. Or 7 a.m. 6:50 a.m. in Australia. Anyway, so we got you on again this week because you're more than okay. You are very excited, aren't you, Caroline? Because what has just dropped?
I am very excited. I'm a bit nervous. I'm very, very nervous about it all. Because I hate the sound of my own voice. So whether other people will want to listen to it, I don't know. But yes, I'm excited about the people that I've interviewed and the fact that people are going to be able to hear all the incredible stuff that has come out of their gobs because it is genius stuff.
On what?
I mean, you've heard it all. It's amazing.
I have, but you haven't even told the listeners. Listeners at home, we've been doing ADR on Caroline's new show, Talk Musicals to Me, which dropped 4 days ago. We've been doing ADR for the past 2 hours. It's 7 a.m. in Australia. It's 9...
It's 10 to 10 here.
10 to 10 in the UK. I nearly said in America. So that's how crazy and kooky we are because we're very overtired. And we're also less than 12 hours from launch.
Yeah.
So, yes. So that's why I've got you on to tell our listeners about your show. So what exciting guests can you spoil?
So my first 3 guests who are dropping tomorrow are the incredible...
No, it dropped 4 days ago.
They dropped 4 days ago. Sorry. They dropped 4 days ago. Maria Friedman, Adam Gettel, and John Weidman. Maria is a brilliant actress and director and person from the UK who has been in a gazillion shows, a lot of Sondheim shows on this side of the Atlantic and the other side of the Atlantic, and obviously totally the other side of the world to people listening in Australia. So I've got her on. I have Adam Gettel on, who wrote The Light in the Piazza, one of my favourite shows of all time. Floyd Collins, which just opened this week in New York. And they've announced they're doing a cast recording of it, which is brilliant. He's also I don't always like saying this about Adam because he is so much more than this, but he is the grandson of Richard Rodgers of Rodgers and Hammerstein fame. So he has been part of that huge legacy of musical theatre. So hearing him talk about the musicals that have influenced him and that have been a part of his life is absolutely brilliant. So that's really cool. And then John Weidman, who is the book writer of one of my other favourite shows, Assassins with Stephen Sondheim, and Pacific Overtures, and Contact, and Roadshow, and Big. And he rewrote the script for the recent Broadway revival of Anything Goes. He is an incredible book writer, an incredible person, and has some wonderful things to say about working with Stephen Sondheim, about other musicals that have influenced him. And it's just wonderful listening to all these people talk and hearing their vast amount of knowledge and experience and growing from that. I'm really excited about it. I've had an amazing time recording it. And so I really hope people tune in and listen and enjoy it, because I think it's really fun. It's really informative and it's just really inspiring, I think. Yep. Are you inspired, Aaron? You are. You like it, don't you? You're enjoying talking to all these brilliant people.
Yeah, that's weird because when they come in, I've never met any of them before. I've never spoken to any of them before, but like they're coming into our house. Yeah. You know, we've invited them in onto your show on my network, so it's our house. Not to quote Michael's musical again, which is ever since your husband's been on the show, that Madness musical has been mentioned every freaking episode. No joke. Yeah, so I can't be shy at all, and I probably freak them out. They're like, "Hey, how you doing?" They're just chatting to them normally, but you know, they're just such lovely people, and I can't even mention who we've had on because we haven't announced them yet, but just those three names alone was just, yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Can we say who we have on next? Are we allowed to say we have on next week?
Yeah.
Can we?
Have you decided?
Which one should it be?
I think George Stiles.
I think George Stiles, yes.
Good. Okay. I was going to fight for that one.
Yeah. So we're in agreement. That's all good.
Yes. Okay. Good. Because then we can put a snippet of that episode in this episode's ad break because of the guest that we have on today. And then we've got both of them at least on that one episode. So anyways, guess what?
What?
Oh, hang on. No, but first off, before I do that. So anyways, listeners, you can find Talk Musicals to Me now exclusively on the Bloop Network, hosted by Caroline here, and it is absolutely wonderful. So new episodes will be dropping on Tuesdays. Anything else you want to add?
Listen in, enjoy, listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, everywhere it'll be. Because once it starts going online, then all the external ones will start picking it up. Anyways, guess what?
What?
We have another legendary British diva joining our tea party on the ceiling today, but let's hope he loves to laugh and isn't made of stone like a statue, eh? Because this Maidstone pebble has cemented himself a rock-solid career alongside his partner in rhyme, George Stiles, after a grand night at the theatre inspired an avalanche of ambitions that caused these gems to cave in and make the bolder choice to chisel out a career in climbing the pyramid of musical theatre brilliance when they grovelled at Tutankhamun's throne before being thrown into the jungle just so they could win a prize only 12 days after my parents won their own. And speaking of the boy who never grew up, I'm Aaron, and once I open my umbrella, we'll take off after Mary, even though she's too far above me, and fly across the Limpopo, what did I call me? Oh, Limpopo River, and sail up to the heavens on our travels with my aunt, because if you reach for the stars, all you end up is just beyond the stars. So honk if you're ugly, because this Aussie is just so excited to squawk out an Aussie g'day and dive into the many cast albumins hatched by one half of this fairy tale sixpence whose lyrical prowess makes him the big badass wolf to Queen Lizzie B plus her 3 little pigs and her 3 billy goats gruff. And in the middle, there's me, putting the hoe in cinders in Soho cinders, while Goldilocks hogs 3 bears to herself, that bitch. And speaking of hogs, Betty Blue Eyes is giving me the evil eye because she's becoming antsy for me to welcome to our brick torture chamber a proper gentleman and certified zoologist with a tiny urban zoo of cunning linguistics that aren't identical to his peers, yet go down like a spoonful of sugar and fit perfectly into Mary Poppins' carpet bag. So before the wind in the willows changes directions, please give a chim-chim-cheree, then pick up your hooves and trot in time for the grammatically perfect Mr. Anthony Drewe. Yay, welcome to the torture chamber. How's it going?
Thank you very much. I'm exhausted.
Oh, goodness gracious, it's so hot in this room as well.
You should have a competition to see if people can get every single reference you referred to.
My guests can't even get the references, and my guests can't even get it. So, goodness gracious me.
I like the Maidstone one. That was very unexpected.
Yes, good. Thank you very much. Well, obviously, in Mary Poppins, there is the boulder pun, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm so totally showing them how it's done. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, it's what I do. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. It's taken us a while.
It has taken a while. But I'm glad we managed to finally get it together.
About 4 years for our listeners at home.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we can announce by the time this episode drops, you're going to be one of the guests on Caroline Sheen's brand new podcast, Talk Musicals to Me. And I must apologize because listening back to the video, I called you Anthony twice, but it's Anthony. So I'm so sorry.
Oh, I don't mind that at all. Don't worry about
I
that.
know Caroline said, but I'm like, I've got to look like an idiot. Because then before the interview, I listened to the first half, then came in during the interval or the break, and I called you Ants just to make sure I'm not saying Anthony or Anthony, just in case, because maybe Caroline's getting it wrong. I don't know. So this time I made sure it was. So
No worries.
that's it. So no, thank you so much. As I mentioned in your introduction, April 26th, 1985. 40 years ago tonight that this episode is dropping. You and George won a prize.
We did.
Yes. This is probably going to blow your mind. Tonight, as in right now, right this very moment that this is airing, is dropped April 26, 2025. My co-host Steve is actually sitting in the audience watching his son, Reed Epley, play Michael Banks in Mary Poppins at his school.
Oh, how amazing.
Because there's two performances on that day.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be on the 26th of April, on the 40th anniversary of that.
How amazing.
But after 4 years, we could have done this interview 4 years ago. And I might have had you back in the meantime then, but it probably still wouldn't have fallen to have this weird date thing of the 26th of April. And obviously it was my 40th. Like, I was literally 12 days old when you won that award. Sorry to make you feel old. But, so he does send his regards, and hopefully... I know Reed will be killing it out there. So
Good. It's very sweet to go and see these shows when the children do them. Mary Poppins Jr., which is what I'm assuming he's doing.
Yes.
It was devised by Music Theatre International, who published nearly all of our shows. And George and I were working on Half a Sixpence at Chichester Festival Theatre at the time. And a whole coachload of children came up from the far southwest of the UK in Penzance, who had been rehearsing a version of Mary Poppins Jr. to come and show to all of us who were in Chichester, which was Cameron, and I think Tom Schumacher from Disney was there, and Julian Fellows was there, and George and I. And these poor kids had to come and perform it to us just in the rehearsal room so that we could make decisions as to whether we thought the right cuts had been made or whether we wanted to put anything back in and take stuff out. But it gets done a lot. It's kind of aimed at, what would it be, 12 to 16-year-olds or something like that? How old is Reed?
Oh, no, he's younger. I think he's...
Oh, he's Michael Banks, though.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would work, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe it's the adult version they're doing.
No, it is Junior. I'll send you the flyer, yeah. I had to, I found out literally like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, when we first we recorded with Caroline. I told Steve that you had agreed to come on the show, and he's like, oh shit, my son's doing Mary Poppins.
Wow. It's very pleasing to hear it being done and seeing children introduced to the idea, not just of watching a show, but of being in a show.
Yes, that's it. I'm so against the junior versions. Just let them do the full version. How the hell are you going to push them at their skills unless you force them to do that 3-hour version of Les Mis?
Well, I guess it's to also do concentration span and how long the kids are prepared to sit there for and how long they've got to rehearse it for. In the case of Mary Poppins, I don't think we lost anything particularly. You know, you don't go into such depth of the character developments and stuff, but you get the story.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to Mary Poppins a little bit more later on whether or not you lost anything along the way. But before we move on to the medal, you studied zoology, which I found amazing because I love animals. Animals are so much better than people. No offense to anyone I love in my life. So what's more intimidating, working with lions or working with actors?
Despite having done zoology and ecology, I did both streams in my degree. There was relatively little actual contact with animals other than when you were dissecting them. You know, dissecting a frog, dissecting a rabbit, dogfish, all that sort of stuff. So it was more, the zoology side of the course was more about genetics and comparative anatomy, evolution. And then you went through a flight. We had an expert on flight, both insect and bird flight, who was one of the professors at the university. I loved it. I've always been interested in wildlife, in natural history. I used to do lots of conservation work when I was younger. I was in a local group here near Maidstone, which is where I live again now, called the Conservation Commandos. And we would go out at weekends and we would pull rubbish out of the local streams and discarded shopping trolleys and mattresses and reopened footpaths and put new seating along them so people could enjoy them again. And it's just something that had always interested me. And I went to a very traditional grammar school in Maidstone, and I think they were more keen on channeling you to become a doctor or a vet or an accountant or a bank manager than they were in the arts. And although actual painting art was the thing I was most naturally good at, I did well at biology. I enjoyed it. So when I went to university and I didn't really know what I wanted to do a subject that I was kind of okay at school seemed like a natural choice. And I think had I not met up with George and started writing, I would probably have become a biology teacher. But I'm still interested. Where I live now, I'm in the middle of the countryside here in Kent. I walk my dog every morning across the fields, and especially this time of year when everything is just bursting into life, it's fascinating to see the migrant birds arriving, the flowers coming out, the butterflies emerging. And I don't think I would ever lose that interest. It's just something I always say I would never want to go on a walk in the countryside where I can't identify things. I just like knowing what's what.
So the answer is it's more intimidating working with actors, is what you're saying.
Yes, I would say it was.
Yes,
I say it was because they can answer back.
Yeah, you mentioned the Commandos. Reminds me of a show. There was guerrilla gardeners that we had in Australia where they would go to some council roundabout and put a garden in there.
Yep.
But a lot of the councils would come along and rip it out because it wasn't legal. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
I've seen that. I don't know if it was in Australia, but I've seen that happen where they have exactly that. They go to an island in the middle of a roundabout and they put flowers and plants and stuff there. And in actual fact, the embankments of motorways, of which we've got a lot in the UK, are one of the biggest natural nature reserves now because people can't go there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why when you're driving up the M1 or the M40 or something, you see all these birds of prey because there's so much insect life in the borders of the motorway that attracts the small mammals, which in turn attracts the predatory birds.
That's it. It's like that in Australia as well. Sorry, can I be absolute pain and get you to move the jacket away from the microphone if that's okay?
Oh, sorry, is it banging it? I'll take it off, actually.
Yeah, it is. That's all right. It's rubbing against it.
It's a nice sunny day here.
I can get rid of it and I will get rid of it, but it would save me a lot of time if we nip it in the bud now.
Of course.
So, and it's only because I've met you before that I actually have the guts to be able to say that, because this is so intimidating like you wouldn't believe. Yes, no, thank you so much.
That's okay.
That's wonderful. Anyways, speaking of hose, I guess, metal hose, gardening hose, not what I called myself in your introduction. We'll move on to the metal now. I don't know, it was a terrible, clumsy segue. So what would you put in your ultimate, craziest, most over-the-top rock star rider?
I'm not a particularly opulent person, but what I do love is a glass of chilled New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. And the more it tastes of gooseberries, the better.
Yeah.
But I love that. And I used to perform a little bit. And when I performed, I got it into my head, if I didn't have chocolate before I went on stage, I wouldn't give it enough energy. So by the end of the run, it meant you needed bigger outfits because I'd have like a thick bar of chocolate, and it became psychosomatic. If I don't go on stage with chocolate, I might mess up.
Wow, this blows my mind, Ants. It really does. Okay, we had Christiane Knoll on the show recently, and I asked her what piece of advice was she given earlier on in her career. And I gave the example of maybe something like you were told not to drink milk before going out and singing, but then everyone at the theater's drinking coffee anyways.
Right.
And here you are talking about having a block of chocolate beforehand. How were you able to sing without your throat? And, she said something about Flemish, your friend. And I'm like, oh, no, tell me about it.
Yeah. Oh, no.
This blows my mind.
I've heard that about dairy products. And actually milk chocolate is always my favorite rather than dark. But I don't know, just something, I say it became psychosomatic. It's in the same way that I was in a show for a while in Singapore.
Yep.
It was kind of like an Agatha Christie, and I'm the sort of Inspector Poirot. It was a musical comedy. I'd written the songs for it, and then they said, would I be in it? I used to sit in my dressing room for all of Act 1 while the rest of the Asian cast are performing. And at the interval, the guy who's going to get killed gets killed. And Act 2, I'm barely off stage because I'm being Hercule Poirot type character solving the crime. But I got that into my head. If I don't read the whole script every night before I go on stage, I might mess my lines up. So I would get in at the call when everyone else had to get in, obviously, and I'd get into makeup and I'd get into my microphone and everything. And then I sit in my my dressing room and I read the script. Not act one, because I know how that goes and I'm not in it, but
Yeah.
act two, just to make sure I was on top form. And that became psychosomatic too. I thought if I don't read it, I'm going to mess it up.
And that's what you call a twist of fate. Like, that
Mhm.
shouldn't work. That's advice I was given as a kid that's turned out to be bullshit, because everyone rocks up to the theater with a giant bloody coffee like that. And there's no way that's straight, with no milk in it. There's no way
Oh, right.
it's going to be a bloody 6-inch tall bloody black coffee. There's obviously milk in it. So yeah, that blows my mind. Because what would it do? Bugsy Malone, and we all went for ice cream during the break between matinee and the evening show. Oh god, bunch of kids having ice cream doing musical theatre. No. So that was a terrible show that evening, and we did not deserve the smattering of standing ovations that we got. But anyways, have you had much experience with metal, heavy metal, glam metal, et al?
Very little. I mean, going to school in the 70s, Sweet were glam rock, Sweet and the glitter band and those sort of things were emerging.
Yep. Ballroom Blitz.
So
yep.
I was aware of it. It wasn't necessarily always my favorite, although I was a fan of Slade, actually. I think the very first album I ever bought was Sladeist. I don't know where that came in their trajectory. In many ways, it is almost diametrically opposed to the sort of thing I do.
Yeah.
So it was interesting when you sent me the link, and I've listened to that whole album, and I've researched the group.
Awesome.
It's just a different world to the one in which I have moved.
Yeah.
And yet you can't deny it's found an audience. It's found an audience for years.
Yes.
And the videos I've watched of Green Jelly,
oh no,
it's extraordinary.
They are.
It is extraordinary, but it obviously had an audience. I mean, whether it still does, because they formed in about 91.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had some success in America, and they had a number. It was a number 17 hit, I think, with their version of the Three Little Pigs. Extraordinary. I have to say that of the songs I listened to, that is the wittiest, and in a way the most coherent, and the one that actually does tell a story, albeit a story we're familiar with, but for them to put their own spin on it made it witty.
Yeah.
Some of the others, if you listen to a song like Rock and Roll Pumpkin, when the only lyrical line in it is Rock and Roll Pumpkin, it's kind of hard for me to have an opinion about it, other than try harder and write the rest of the lyric.
Yeah, I think there's a big sense of fuck you in what they do, very much so.
I mean, but from the get-go, Bill Manspeaker, the guy who has always been the lead singer with the group, he relishes the fact that they were billed as being the worst band in history.
Yeah.
The world's worst band. That's what they're called, the world's worst band. And it's almost like a matter of pride that he continued to become and sustain that. Because the other interesting thing about the band is, although he was always the lead singer, they had something like 130 band members because they kept just changing the people in the band. As something else he was proud of. He says he could go to any city in the world and within half an hour he'll have formed a new band because he'll just have peopled it with the right instrumentalists or whatever so that he can play the next thing. But it says something about the quality of the music, I would say. If he really thinks he can form a coherent band in half an hour, you kind of realise that maybe the musical dexterity is not foremost in his mind.
Yeah, okay, so the Three Little Pigs, that's actually why I picked this, because not only have I written my own version of the Three Little Pigs, but so have you.
Yes.
Which was my Queen Lizzie's professional debut, I believe, in theatre. But it was here in Australia, though.
Oh, yeah, it was, yeah.
Well, I didn't know her then. Otherwise, I would have gone down there and screaming at the stage door for her.
Oh, no, she was terrific. I met her through a workshop of another show of ours, and that was when she got an agent. As you know, she did a degree in
Egyptology, yeah.
In Egyptology. And she did some performance, and an agent approached her and said, are you wanting to go into the business? And I think she...
Billy Elliot, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
And I think she thought not. And then when we were looking for someone for one of our workshops of Becoming Nancy, the agent recommended this girl. And that's when we met her and we became friends. And then when I was directing the Three Little Pigs in London and then going to Australia, we cast her in it. So it was her first professional job.
Oh, wonderful.
And she was terrific, really terrific.
Yeah, weird. As I say, like now I'm producing her show.
Great.
And I'm also producing Caroline Sheen show. I promise I'm not stalking you, Ants, at all. It's just sort of how it's happened like that. It's like suddenly I found myself with all these witches of Eastwick. Caroline, Maria Friedman, Christiane Noel, and Pippa Grandison. All four of them. Pippa
Wow.
Grandison, who was also in Mary Poppins in Australia as a replacement, I believe. Was she? She was.
I can't remember all the names. I was there for the opening when it first opened there.
Was she? Oh, God.
Can't remember. I do. I mean, so often I now go to parties and things, and someone comes up and I'm meant to know who they are, and I don't. A, they're not wearing the makeup and everything, but B, I can't keep tabs on them all because it's become a bit of a sausage machine where you're constantly putting new kids in.
Yes, there's so many of them.
And now the kids are growing up and they're coming up and saying, I was a Michael Banks, I was a Jane Banks, and they look like they're 30 now,
And you're like, yes, you were. Yeah. Okay. So the reason I picked it was Three Little Pigs, but I was 6 when that came out, and it was, I would say, a hit in Australia, but that was just because I absolutely loved it, and it was so inspiring to me because the video clip was claymation.
Yeah, the brief for the album was that everything was going to become a video, wasn't it, for that particular album?
Yes, because the album we did is Serial Killer Soundtrack, which is actually the album of the video album they did, which I watched. And I was like, I hope, please, Ants hasn't watched this, because one of the songs in particular was, okay, there was two songs.
Yes, I have watched that one. I know exactly what you're going to say, and yes, I have watched it. And it used to get banned by schools.
Yes, okay, there was the rave one.
Yeah, the teenage rave, yep.
And there was the shit mad one. Now, they're both very juvenile. I'll talk about these first before I talk about the rest of the album. They're very, very juvenile songs. The only difference is that the shit man one was stupid, but had the potential to be funny. The rave one just made me cringe and turn it down so that my neighbors and my family and the 15-year-old weren't hearing it.
Exactly. In a way, it's hard to believe that you get away with that today. And that was in the 90s.
Oh, no, they wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
They would get dragged through the mud for putting out that rave song, I think. And the shit man would just get made fun of or ignored. It was silly and it was juvenile. Now, I talk a lot on this show about whether or not sometimes an album will come out and just too soft for me. I'm not a metal fan, but I've signed up to listen to metal, and sometimes it just doesn't. And I describe it as non-threatening. This was completely threatening.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
I would say it felt aggressive. But I would say, and it's as a generalization, I find that with a lot of heavy metal music, Kiss and Metallica. There was some guy who used to drink blood or something. Was that Kiss?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Was it Ozzy Osbourne?
Bit the head off a bat.
They drank like a pint of blood so that they would throw up on stage with blood.
Oh, that actually might have been G.G. Allen, because he did disgusting things like that on stage. I know, yeah, it's all shock value, and a lot of it's just fake.
I guess it is. I mean, even this guy, Bill Manspeaker, he's ironic and self-deprecating when he's interviewed. I watched an interview with him.
Ironic, yes. That's exactly, because they're doing these cartoonish songs like Anarchy in the UK, but about bedrock.
That's right.
Which I actually thought was really funny and really clever and very British, but it's very tongue-in-cheek, it's satirical, and it's ironic. The Three Little Pigs they've got in there, the Toucan's Son of Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Fruit Loops, but also disappointed because I was stale. So I had Rice Bubbles instead. And then I watched the video of all these things, and the Rice Bubbles characters were in it. So I had a thematic dinner.
See, the funny thing is with that song, with the serial killer song, reading the lyric first, it reads as if there has been a drive-past shooting in a supermarket. There's corpses. He says there's terror in the supermarket. Shoppers are in horror.
Yeah.
There are corpses on the floor. Sugar-coated slaughter. So I thought, it's a song about a mass murderer. And then when it got to the toucan, I remember the toucan being a symbol on the Fruit Loops packet as a kid, which occasionally we were allowed to have rather than cornflakes or Rice Krispies. Occasionally we would get Cocoa Pops or we get these Fruit Loops. And then I thought, is it a kid who's had too much food additives and the colours in the Fruit Loops have made a kid go to the supermarket and kill everybody? And then I got to the Son of Sam bit, and there really was a serial killer called Son of Sam.
Yep, Summer of Sam.
And the toucan was called Sam.
Yep.
So I went round in circles as to, is this being a really clever take on a mass murderer, or is it the toucan who has killed everybody in the supermarket?
Yeah.
I went round and round.
I went round and round around as well, thinking, is this really clever or is this really childish and stupid? But it's really well made. The song is really well written. It's really well played. The music is metal. It's hard rock at least. There's a bit of punk in there, influence there. The video clip was him going around ripping the heads off things dressed as Toucan Sam. It was ridiculous and stupid. It really was.
Well, that answers my question then, to a certain extent. I haven't watched the video for that one, so I haven't seen the toucan. I was purely going on remembering that it was a toucan on Fruit Lips and that Son of Sam was a famous serial killer.
Yep, and there is a movie as well called Summer of Sam by Spike Lee, which is fantastic. I think Adrian Brody's in it. I know Jennifer Esposito is from Spin City. That's so random. That's a very competent album in terms of, you take out those two songs that made me cringe, everything else in there is fantastic. I thought it's just literally those two songs, the one about poop, because it was just silly and childish and juvenile. Now in 1991 I would have loved it if I had heard it then, but I didn't hear it then. I only heard the Three Little Pigs. But my brother, certainly at his age, 14, he would have gone crazy for it, you know, because he was a juvenile metalhead. So yeah, no, I thought the rest of it, there was shades of punk rock in there were shades of hard rock, there were shades of metal in there were shades of progressive. The influences came through, but it made a cohesive album.
Yeah.
And which is not done anymore.
I would say the same. And actually, there's something in the music to a lot of the tracks, which, I mean, in some places it sounds a bit derivative of other heavy metal bands, but it did give it a glue that at least gave a coherence to why this track is here and this track is here, I thought.
Yeah. And look, there is a place in the world for novelty bands, or especially in the UK, the sort of novelty track is massive there, and in places like Japan as well. Not so much in America, I don't think. Maybe back then more.
Through my life, there have been unlikely hits that have been like The Streak. Do you remember The Streak? About a streak.
No, but Lily the Pill.
Lily the Pink.
Lily the Pink, that's it.
That was the scaffold, yeah. We'll drink, drink. The Lily the Pink, a pink. Again, an unusual one.
She invented a pill. The compound.
Yeah, that's right. The Monster Mash.
The Monster Mash. Yes, that's it. Rock and Robin. That's
Ernie, Benny Hill's Ernie. It became a kind of a thing that became popular with the UK, that you could get away with a novelty hit. Even Gangland Style.
Mr. Blobby.
You're Mr. Blobby. I guess it's just part of the quirks of the music industry that sometimes something comes on which grabs everyone's imagination and it's a hit for a minute and then it disappears again until we do a podcast and talk about them.
Yeah, true. And bring them up again. Just please never bring up that frog song, people. Anyways, yeah, no, I actually really enjoyed this apart from those two songs, which I thought let it down. So I gave it 4 stars because it is threatening but fun. It's accessible to a point. As I say, those two songs, you take them out, it's a great album. It's still 4 stars to me.
Sure. And I say it's self-deprecating and they know what they've come as. And even the very last quatrain of the Three Little Pigs song, after Rambo who's come in with a machine gun and killed the big bad wolf, and the moral of the story is a band with no talent can easily amuse idiots with a stupid puppet show. And they know that's what they're doing.
Exactly. This is an album and a band that very much knows what it is. And they were called Green Jello, but were sued by the company that makes Jello because it's actually called Jelly, people. Jello is the name. It's like Glad Wrap. I don't know if Glad Wrap's in the UK, but Saran Wrap maybe.
Oh, yep.
We call it Glad Wrap here, but it's Cling Wrap or something like.
We call it Cling Film.
Film.
We call it Cling Film. Yeah.
Velcro. Velcro is not the name of it. It's a hook and catch. That's what it's called. Velcro is the name of the company that makes it or patented or something like that. So Jello is one of those words.
But I saw an interview with Bill Manspeaker because when they had to change the name from Jello because Kraft objected, he changed it to Green Jelly, but with an umlaut over the Y, which still makes it sound like Jello, even though it's spelled Green Jelly.
There's an intelligence there, I think, that even though it is very juvenile and childish, like you say, they know what they are, they know what they're doing, and that very much comes across, but it comes across authentically, I think, in terms of being stupid, but also being musical and also being rock, being a party band.
Yeah, I guess if you start out for fun and with no expectations, as he did, and it finds an audience, you just keep doing the same thing, the same degree of juvenility, if that's a word, and you're going to still please your crowd.
I don't mean to laugh, but when you listen to it back, you're going to agree with me here. You sounded so much like Mary Poppins at the start of Spoonful of Sugar. She's like, well, there's an element of fun. And I was expecting you to go into like start singing, and I really was like, I couldn't help but laugh. I'm so sorry. That was so rude of me.
What did you think of Obey the Cow God?
Again, like it's fun and it's silly and it's stupid and it's tongue in cheek, but it's still really musical. It's still really well played. Like it's got this like hillbilly rockabilly sound to it, so you got that flavor and that influence in there, but doesn't sound like it's emulating. I don't know. I can't think of a rockabilly band off the top of my head. Yeah, no, it was silly. It was enjoyable, but like they are a serious band, but don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah, I thought, is this a call for vegetarianism? That it's a cow who's saying, don't go to Burger King, don't eat McDonald's, or is it a nod to Hinduism? And I was reading, because I've been to India where the cows are treated as sacred.
Yes.
A cow's walking down the street, you wait until it's passed before you can carry on driving. And a sacred cow has become a figure of speech as well for anything that is considered immune from question or immune from criticism. So I thought, oh, are they saying, yes, we know we look like a bunch of tits on stage, but you can't criticize us because we're a sacred cow and we're doing our thing, and don't criticize us. So I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to read too much into their lyrics because I'm a lyricist, but I always start with the lyrics and then I listen to the music and I see if it makes sense to me.
They strike me, as silly as they are, as being intelligent, so it wouldn't surprise me if there was, and I'm just not picking it up myself.
Right. I might be reading too much into it.
Anyways, we're going to move us on because it looks like Green Jelly weren't totally shit, man. Sorry. So we're going to go to an ad break.
Hello there, my name is Caroline Sheen, and I've just started an exciting new podcast called Talk Musicals to Me, where I'll be sitting down with some of the biggest names and industry players in musical theatre, including Olivier and Tony Award winners, West End and Broadway icons, and celebrated composers, as they discuss the musicals that have resonated most with them, both professionally and personally, sharing their most cherished musical memories. Join me on this journey through the fantastic musical theatre world and the people who inhabit it. And here is an exclusive sneak peek. Welcome back, and thank you for listening. We're going to crack on and hear more from George Stiles. Thank you for coming back, George.
I had nowhere I had to be, Caroline, so you were the best offer I had all day.
So you might as well be here. So, George, my next question is, am I right in thinking you won some kind of scheme with Camerons or something like that? Is there something I'm missing there?
No, you're all virtually right. It was called the Vivian Ellis Prize, and Vivian was a wonderful composer of British musicals in the 20s and 30s. He was at the time almost as successful as George Gershwin. Vivian was being celebrated by the Performing Rights Society for his 80th birthday, and they formed a competition called the Vivian Ellis Prize. It was held at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. We came up having entered 2 songs and a synopsis from our new musical Just So, which we were in the middle of writing. And we watched these brilliantly talented young students perform our 2 songs. And we were in competition with, I can't remember, about 15 other shows. And we were absolutely convinced that we haven't got a hope in hell of doing well in the competition. And we sat there in April 1985 in a packed audience. And right behind us was sitting no one lesser than Alan J. Lerner of Lerner and Lowe.
Wow.
And on stage, the judges were Cameron McIntosh, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Don Black, Tim Rice, and John Hosier, the head of the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, as well as Vivian Ellis himself. And unbelievably, it came to the announcement and they said, and the winner is Just So by George Stiles and Anthony Drewe. And Alan J. Lerner leant forward and said to Anthony, "They picked the right show."
Ah, that's wonderful.
So that was lovely. And then we were having our photograph taken on stage afterwards. And Cameron said to me in my ear, "What are you going to do with it now?" And I haven't got a clue what to say. So I just said, "I don't know. What are you going to do with it?" And he said, "Well, actually, I think it's really interesting. I'd love to come and see your first production. Will you invite me?" And he said, "And if you need anything, here's my card. Give my secretary a call and we'll see if we can help you." And we did need some help with the sound equipment. So we gave him a ring and he gave us Andrew Bruce from Autograph Sound to help us.
Wow. Oh my God. That's amazing.
And Andrew and Autograph came down and gave us some sound equipment because we were doing it on an absolute budget of a shoestring.
Yeah.
And the other lovely thing from that moment, having our photos taken, is that I was shaking Vivian Ellis's hand. And he said, I want you to know that when you shake my hand, you're only 5 handshakes away from Beethoven.
I love this
I
story.
said, I'm sorry, how does that work? And he said, well, as you probably know, I was very good friends with George Gershwin, who was absolutely one of my complete heroes already, because they'd been successes both sides of the Atlantic, as I was saying earlier. They both had shows running all over the world. So he said, and you probably know that Gershwin studied with Maurice Ravel, the composer, to learn about orchestrations. And I did know that because I'd done my dissertation at university on Porgy and Bess, which is why Gershwin took himself off to study with Ravel, because he wanted to do his own orchestrations. Because when he was writing his Broadway musicals, he didn't tend to write his own orchestrations because they were written so quickly. They had a team of people that would help with the orchestrations, which is why that is still the tradition that continues to this day. Composers for Broadway and West End musicals very rarely write their own orchestrations. I've never written mine. But Gershwin had studied with Ravel, and he said, so that's me, Gershwin, Ravel, that's 3 handshakes. And Ravel, when he was a very young student, met a very old Ludwig van Beethoven. So that's 4 handshakes. So, and then you add me, that's 5. So now when I shake people's hands, they're only 5 handshakes away from Beethoven.
That is incredible. That thread.
And that blew my mind about just how tiny history is, you know?
That was my script. We're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, but I'm merrily popping along with Anthony Drewe. Now, if performing arts had an Olympics for amateur artists, which events would you want to watch people compete at? And what discipline would you compete at and win gold?
Oh my goodness. I would say it would have to be like a tap dance marathon.
Yeah.
But I would not be taking part in it.
So that would be what you watch, yeah?
Yep.
So, and what would you take part in and win gold?
I would watch that. What would I take part in? It would probably be word related. It'd be Wordle or Scrabble or something that involves words. I do love playing games.
Yeah.
And I play a lot of, especially with my mother, I play a lot of Upwords, which are like a 3-dimensional Scrabble. And I like doing Sudokus. I remember Sondheim had downstairs in his New York apartment, he had lots of games. He loved playing games. And he, in fact, used to set the Christmas New York Times big crossword puzzle.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I used to make theatre crosswords for a certain magazine in Australia that I'm not going to mention. They literally didn't pay me to handcraft crossword puzzles that were 100% musical theatre.
Wow.
So, like, I hand compile it, and I've done 2 composers so far. So I've done Andrew Lloyd Webber and I've done Stephen Sondheim.
Amazing.
So I'll get to more soon. I promise.
And do you start with the grid
Yep.
and then work out how many letters you're going to have in that answer?
Yep. I just have if I had one around here, I could pull one out and just show you. But so even here, there's like ones that I've compiled. But the actual, so I basically start off with a grid and I just think, what's the first word? And always will start off with an odd lettered word, like 7 letters, 11 letters or something like that, because then you get a guarantee of word, blank, word, blank, word. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So you think of like a 7-letter word, and then do you colour in the black dot to say that's where there's going to be?
Yep, and then I colour in the black. Okay. Yep, and I do it in pen. So like, if I make a mistake, I'm fucked basically, or I have to get white out. So I don't use pencil. I don't use the computer. I don't use any programs. It's therapy, really.
I bet. I love things like that. It's the same like when I'm writing a lyric, I'll work on it and work on it and work on it because I need to get the musicality into the line, even when it hasn't got any music set to it. I need to know it's going to sing.
Yep, no, I get that. Anyways, well, I love that word puzzles and all that, but you've spent a lot of time in a lot of theatres. So, have you ever seen a theatre ghost? Ooh.
I've never seen a theatre ghost, so I have worked in theatres where there is supposedly a theatre ghost. I think Theatre Royal Bath, there was meant to be a theatre ghost.
I think Mary Poppins, was that at Princess or Her Majesty's? I saw it.
It was at the what, over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the Princess.
Was it Her Majesty's?
Princess, is it called?
Or was it Her Majesty's? I saw it.
It's Her Majesty's Melbourne.
Yes, Her Majesty's and Princess of Melbourne.
Right. And what's the one in Sydney?
His Majesty's, I think. Oh God, I don't know. It's capital.
I can't remember. It's a long time ago.
There's the capital. There's the lyric. It's Sydney. They're trying to overtake us as the theatre capital of Australia.
I got that sense when I was literally working on the Three Little Pigs at Sydney Opera House. Because the show was then going to go to Melbourne Arts Centre, I got a flight one day up to Melbourne to do some press stuff. And I got a real sense of this competition between Melbourne and Sydney, and which is the most theatrical.
It is very real.
And I love both of them for different reasons, actually.
I think they're starting to plan out actual theatre districts in either city.
Right.
So we may have two because just can't get their shit together, can they? Anyways, where am I on my script? So you haven't? Oh, that's all right.
What was the question? What didn't I answer? Oh, about a theatre ghost. No, I have not. I've never encountered a theatre ghost. I've heard of people saying they felt a chill, things like that, but I personally haven't. I like to think they exist. I'm not skeptical about it.
I am. I'm totally skeptical because I'm sorry. I don't like the thought of having my dead grandparents standing there looking at me when I'm alone in my bedroom. I'm a 40-year-old man. So I'd rather not deal with that at all.
I reckon that if you're going to encounter a theatre ghost, you're more likely to encounter it backstage or in dressing rooms than you are where I tend to be, which is somewhere in the middle of the stalls watching a rehearsal.
Yeah, Lonnie said that I think he had seen, I don't know, God, so many interviews lately. Anyways, before we move on to the musical, is there one artist or band whom you hope never, ever gets a jukebox musical?
Probably Green Jelly.
Well, I meant technically one that you'd like an artist that is so sacred that you wouldn't want to ruin. But I will take that answer.
One that I like. There are so many. I mean, I do find it becomes a bit of a cliche nowadays to just do another jukebox musical. You know, Mamma Mia was amazing because Katherine Johnson actually wrote a very coherent story to link those songs together. I think, and I haven't seen the Michael Jackson thing to know what that one's like. Some I just wouldn't want to go to. I love Jersey Boys. I thought that was a very intelligent way of doing a jukebox musical. But there are some where you just think these songs weren't written to further a story and they're just going to hold things up. With the Jersey Boys, it was kind of a mixture of, and then we sang this song at this point in our life. You know, I adore her. That one, when Frankie Valli is singing about his daughter, kind of made sense as well as being one of the Four Seasons songs.
My eyes adored you, though I never laid a hand on you. My eyes adored you. Yeah, that's it.
That's right. That one. Yeah, that's it.
I don't even just sing.
It kind of made sense, you know, dramatically as well as being part of their canon.
Yeah.
And I think other shows that have not done so well. I haven't seen Tina Turner, the Tina Turner musical. They're not something I race to go and see. No. I wanted to see Jersey Boys because, you know, I like their music and they've done a great job on it. I saw Mamma Mia because I was invited to the opening and I thought Katherine Johnson had done a great job on that, on linking the songs together.
And so did Caroline Sheen.
Yes. I think I first met her when she was in that.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
She did a demo for me and she was in that with Scarlett Strallen and another girl whose name I don't remember.
Oh, we'll cut that out.
I don't know if she stayed in the business.
She's not going to know who you're talking about anyways.
No, exactly.
One I really, really wanted to see for a long time was Our House. And I didn't get to see it until recently when I had Michael on this show. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Frickin' loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Madness just fit perfect.
It was Tim Firth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was Tim Firth, I think, who wrote the book, and it was Matthew Waters who directed it. We got two very intelligent people crafting it and making sure it worked as a sort of a sliding doors type story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And a very young Michael Gibson starring in it.
That's it. And clever way to do it. An actual effort put into it. Actual effort was put into making that. But overall, those songs fit so perfectly. Anyways, we're going to move on to the musical now. And originally I picked Honk because I got my date, or no, I didn't get my dates mixed up. I got my shows mixed up. And at first I thought Honk was what you won the award for. Turns out it wasn't. It was Just So.
That's correct.
So let me just find my...
Honk, funny, talking of jukebox musicals, Honk is the show that won the Olivier that beat Mamma Mia.
Yes.
That beautiful spring day that year.
And The Lion King of all shows.
And The Lion King, yeah.
Sorry to Julie Taymor and Elton John. Please come on my show. Oh, shots fired. Anyways, we're going to move on now before I turn to Sassy. Just so, in taking on Honk, I listened through twice before I realized that today is the anniversary of Just So, not Honk. What a goose. Anyway, I'm immediately transported via music and later lyric into a jungle as we're introduced to a menagerie of characters which will feature in these charming tales written by Rudyard Kipling. Knowing There's No Harm in Asking was the first song written for the show, it's clear this is the foundation for which the show ahead is built, as Kipling's almost mythological stories unfold, filling in the blanks of life's biggest mysteries, like why rhinos have skin folds and how the kangaroo got its tail, which admittedly may not hold up in Australia after Wombat Lady made a fool of herself recently. Just So ultimately reads a lot more successfully than a show like Seussical, which didn't transport us into that world. Unlike these rhythms and rhymes which bring us into each unique tale, even if the narrative is lost on the album. But that's fine. What isn't fine is the Aussie accents. Not because it's fake, because that's exactly what we do. We amp up the accent, so we sound Australian, mate. And the music here is authentic. In fact, not only can I hear early Stiles and Drewe, but there are several times I was reminded of musicals that wouldn't be born for another 10 years or more, showing this early effort has more influence than I ever knew. So is it a good show? At a time of Les Mis and Sweeney Todd, it's not the most challenging of shows, but unlike Les Mis, its identity is told through the music, just like Sweeney Todd, Oklahoma, or even The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Musicals where music is just as powerful of a storyteller as the lyrics and book. In Just So, if we're on a tropical island, the music sells that first. This is something most musicals get wrong. The project is a musical by default, so just do what Just So does and focus on the idea you're selling, not the idea of being a musical. 4 stars. A little unclear narratively, but the author's legacy is definitely bubbling away in this charming musical. Plus, animals! Yay! Yeah, I really love this. And as I say, because that's a big thing for me is branding. If you're selling me a show that's set in Victorian England, sound like you are in Victorian England. Don't sell me Broadway,
Sure.
which is what we keep getting. And I think that's that was my huge beef with Seussical, is that it was a Broadway musical. It wasn't Seuss. It was not Dr. Seuss. Maybe in lyrics, but musically it wasn't there. Here, we're transported to these places. We're transported on this journey up the river with these characters, and you feel it, and you feel it lyrically, and it is very charmingly British as well.
I can only agree with you. I mean, it is very British, and it's interesting because it was the second show George and I wrote.
Yes.
And we had just written, in 1983, we wrote our first show, Tutankhamun, based on the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. And it was almost through sung, because that was the flavour of the month at the time. You had way more song and sung information than you did dialogue. And almost as a contrast, we decided to write something completely different. And we didn't know what it was going to be. And we had been reading bedtime stories to George's then young niece and nephew. And we were reading Rikki Tikki Tavi. I think it's from the second Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, which is the story of a mongoose and a giant snake. And we were just doing the voices, and we were doing, you know, there's a rat in it, and there's a mouse, and there's a smaller snake, and various characters. And it made me go back to my childhood bookcase back at my parents' house and look at my Kipling stories. I was a huge fan of the Jungle Book, the Disney Jungle Book, but I got the Just So stories. So I started flicking through this book. It's like 12 stories. And I thought if there was a way of linking these stories together, because they're very unrelated, other than the fact a lot of them are about how animals acquire their most recognizable characteristics. So it's that how the elephant gets a trunk, how the rhino gets baggy skin, how the kangaroo gets his bounce, how the zebra gets stripes.
Oh, it's a bounce, not tail. I thought it was tail.
It was both. So we started working on it, taking one character from the story of the crab who played with the sea, who was called the eldest magician. And he was sort of a creator figure.
Oh,
He
okay.
creates a world. And rather than, you know, creating zebras and creating elephants as we know them today, he kind of made a cock-up, and he made them all look too similar. And rather than snapping his fingers and doing a magic and making them how he wanted them to be, he thought it would be more challenging challenging them to go out into the world and find their own individuality. And that's how they start to develop. So that was our starting point. And we wrote the show in 1985, and it was on in 1985 at a very small production. But by then we'd won this competition, which was called the Vivian Ellis Prize. And it was organised by the Performing Rights Society to honour their president, Vivian Ellis, who wrote Mr. Cinders, Spread Little Happiness, and Bless the Bride, and many other. My Bella Margarita, that's one of his. But Spread Little Happiness, because of Sting, is probably his most famous song. It was an extraordinary morning at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and we won it. And Cameron in the lineup, because we'd always wanted to meet Cameron.
Yeah.
He'd done Cats and he'd done some revivals of Oklahoma and My Fair Lady, but this was pre Les Miserables and Miss Saigon and, you know, all the ones that followed. And so at that point, he entered our lives and has stayed as part of our lives for 40 something years. So we did the show that Christmas. It wasn't a big success. It was over amplified. It was over everything, actually. It was over amplified. It was over costumed. It's a very hard show to costume, actually, because the costumes have to change. The leopard has to get spots. The zebra has to get stripes. And the more you can do it in front of the audience's eyes, the better. So Cameron said to us, look, boys, I think it's about 10% wrong, 90% right. You should go away and have a holiday. And what he should have said is it's about 90% wrong, 10% right. But he knew that if he'd said that to us, he would probably have put us off it as a product to continue with. So we carried on working on it. And the next incarnation was in 1989 at the Watermill Theatre in Newbury, where it was directed by Julia Mackenzie and had a very nice starry cast in it from the West End. Follies had just closed, and a lot of the cast of Follies came to be in it, the younger cast of Follies. It wasn't right, but it was on its journey to becoming more right.
Yeah, it was just so.
It was just so, as one of the critics wrote, I think.
Sorry, I don't mean to bring up that then. I didn't know that. Oh no, foot and mouth. That's just been clever. Sorry.
The following year, 1990,
Yep.
It was done at the then Tricycle Theatre in Kilburn in North London. Got a bit more better, I suppose. It was directed by the late Mike Ockrent. Anthony Van Last, who choreographed Mamma Mia, choreographed it. And it was not bad. It just wasn't good enough to transfer, which is kind of what we were all hoping. So at that point, George and I kind of went off it. In fact, one night in the bar at the Tricycle, Nick Heitner, I think he was probably already at the National by then. If he wasn't, he was about to become the artistic director at the National Theatre. He said, look, boys, very good. Now leave it and write something else. Otherwise, you're going to spend your whole lives writing this show, because this was now 5 years in and that's kind of all we were doing. So we did go away and we started writing different stuff. And then it was actually, let me get this sequence right, Steven Spielberg, straight after it had been on at the Kilburn Theatre, somebody from Spielberg's animation department, which was then called Amblimation, had seen the show. And Cameron got a letter from Steven Spielberg saying, I haven't seen it, I've heard about it, I want it. So he paid us a lot of money to buy the film rights for Just So. So George and I and Cameron flew out to Hollywood, which we'd never been to before, and we spent 2 weeks working with Steven Spielberg on how we were going to turn our little show into a feature animation. And sadly, it never happened. And by the time we were getting closer to getting the script better, we'd seen the designs of the characters, we'd seen designs of the backgrounds, because it was going to be made in Europe, because Spielberg thought that Disney had all the best animators in America, so he was going to set up his own animation studio over here. But then DreamWorks SKG happened, and Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was then head of their animation, wanted all new projects, nothing that was a hanging on from Amblin days. So sadly, Just So didn't ever happen. And nor did Cats as an animation, with a screenplay by Tom Stoppard, which they were working on, which would have been very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And another one called Carnival.
Audience at home, you wouldn't have seen my arms go crazy when he was like, just casually Steven Spielberg optioned his musical underneath his actually a movie poster of Steven Spielberg, The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Lost World.
Yeah.
He was really lovely. He was such a regular guy. In fact, while we were with him for 2 weeks, we were staying at the Universal Sheraton. They got a car for us to drive down the hill and round the corner and into the Amblin lot, at Universal Studios. You could almost have walked quicker, but they wanted us to have the car because everyone drives in Hollywood. I remember one day going out to our car to drive back up the hill to our hotel, and Spielberg was there getting into his car, and he was going home early. And the reason he was going home early is because that was the day when they were officially, I think he was married to Amy Irving at the time, they were officially adopting a little boy who had lived with him already for a year or two. But this was the day he officially became theirs. And he said, so we're throwing a tea party to welcome him officially to the family. But he was lovely. And for the following 2 years, I got a Christmas present from him. I had the first time it was a great big wicker a hamper of baked goods like zucchini bread and things like that. And the second year, it was a toy megaphone that could change your voice. So depending on which setting, you were either a robot or an alien or a baby, and you spoke with your normal voice, and it projected this weird sound out the other end.
God, I'm having conniption fits inside right now, ladies and gentlemen. Steven Spielberg just casually gives you fucking Christmas presents. Oh my God, fathers. I've carried this here in my wallet since I was 8 years old, right? It's
Wow.
a collector card from Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah.
It has come around the world with me. It goes everywhere with me. It's this Brachiosaurus. It's the only one I have remaining because I don't know where the rest of them are. And he just gave you Christmas presents. I'm not at all jealous. I'm not jealous at all.
He's an extraordinary brain. And going to they call them bungalows at Universal Studios. Each apartment has its own bungalow. So Amblin Bungalow, which is the one we were at, we go on those little golf cart things to get to it and to get to the canteen for lunch and everything. The door knocker was E.T. in brass. There was a well in the garden with the George shark coming up out of it.
God,
And because he was working on Jurassic Park at that time, it was way ahead of it, but he was working on it.
Don't tell me this.
The room was full of giant, cuddly Tyrannosaurus Rexes and stuff. And we had to keep going into that room because that's where the keyboard was that George and I performed the songs on to Steven Spielberg.
I feel faint.
So given that the show hadn't transferred, at least the Spielberg thing of it kind of felt like an exciting step on its gestation. But after that didn't happen, and we started moving on to Honk and Peter Pan and various other shows that we were working on, one day I took it upon myself. In actual fact, I think it was around the time when we went through 3 screenwriters. A girl called Robin Lerner had already done the screenplay by the time we got there. So we were then trying to say, actually, that song would be better if you didn't cut that verse out. We put this back in. George and I were staying round the clock at this place in Amblin, ordering in pizzas when everyone else had gone home. We were like the last ones out of the building. Robin Lerner, then there was a guy called Ellis Weiner who wrote for National Lampoon, and he had one crack at it and they didn't like it. And then the third one, who hadn't yet quite started, was a playwright who sadly died a couple of years ago, or last year maybe, called Christopher Durang. And he was a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And I went to New York and I met with Chris Durang.
He wrote a play, didn't he?
He did. He wrote... I won't quite get it.
I know the name.
Yeah. It's something to do with nuns or something like that I've got in my head.
It's not Dare.
Nuns or sisters or...
No, let's have a look. Christopher Durang. I know the name. American playwright, yeah.
He had a very famous play.
Oh, he died last year.
Last year, was it?
Yeah. He won a Tony Award for Best Play.
Which was?
Oh, Vanya. Vanya and Sonia and Marsha and Spike. That's what I'm thinking of.
Right. No, he was a nice man. I liked him. I went to the theatre with him actually because I went to New York to meet him, and I was staying in an old brownstone in Hell's Kitchen. And while I was there, because I was talking to him about Just So, I dug out the scripts that we got, and I thought I'm going to rework it without George there, without Cameron there, no one telling me how to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I wrote a whole new version of it, linking the songs together, a new book. And on the aeroplane on the way back home to the UK, I was reading it and I thought, I don't know if it's any good. It's different. I don't know if it's better or worse. It's just different. And when I got back, I didn't even show it to George. And then there was one weekend when George and I were invited down to Cameron's place in Somerset, where he still lives, to talk about Mary Poppins. It was around the time when that was all beginning to bubble, we knew we were in the mix, and he was talking about who might write the book for it, the script for it. And he said, and then I want to talk to you about Just So. And it was kind of, oh, really? After all these years? And I said, well, look, I have got this new version, and I showed it to them, and they both loved it. So I said, okay, if you like the way I've gone with this, I'll finesse it, and that will be what we do. And Honk had happened, and Honk was getting done around the world. And there was a beautiful theatre in Massachusetts called the North Shore Music Theatre who did Honk. And the guys who ran the theatre, having had a success with Honk, said, have you got anything else we could do next year? And I said, well, look, I could do Just So, but I think you're going to need me to direct it because it's still in a state of flux and I want to sort of do it on the hoof. I said, okay, if you'd like to come and direct it. So I went and directed it there. It was a big success there. And then I did it at Arts Ed, a drama school in the UK, the following year. And then the Triumvirate, who used to run the Chichester Festival Theatre, asked me if I would do it there. So in the summer of 2004, I directed it in Chichester, and that is the version when Cameron said, right, dear, you've got it right now. We make the cast album. And that's the cast album you've listened to.
All thanks to Steven Spielberg.
It was.
No, it wasn't thanks to him. It wasn't.
Well, it partly was actually because Steven Spielberg wanted a bigger threat to the story rather, the elephant goes to the banks of the Limpopo River and has his nose pulled out by a crocodile. And so in most people's eyes, the crocodile was going to be the villain. Spielberg wanted a bigger villain that in a way was threatening all of the animal life. And so we went back to the story of the crab who played with the sea, where there's a crab called Pauama who becomes so huge that when he comes up out of the water, all the water runs away and there's drought. And when he submerges himself, it floods. So he invented really the idea that we use Pauama as the villain. And again, as I say, I saw some of the drawings and one of them was of this giant crab coming up out of the water. And so that's what I then incorporated into the script.
Mind blown.
So Just So was really written over about a 17-year period.
Wow.
And what I love about it is it's so eclectic. It's such a weird mix now because of who we were when we wrote the songs.
Yeah.
And I think we were growing up as writers.
That was your second musical.
Yes, it was our second musical.
Yeah.
Some songs got replaced, not because they had bad reviews or because anyone was telling us to, but because we were bored with them.
Yeah.
And we thought, you know what, we could write a better song than that now. Let's write a better song. And the one you're talking about with the uninhabited island, that was a new song. And a song which gets sung a great deal in auditions and things called Wait a Bit, that was a new song. That wasn't in the first two incarnations of the show.
Yeah. Well, I thought your branding, the Stiles and Drewe branding, came through the most in The Argument. There were certain chords that I heard. There's the evolution of their career. Now, the kangaroo story, there's a Dreamtime story, a very ancient Dreamtime story about how the kangaroos got their tail.
Uh-huh.
Right. And I remember reading it as a picture book as a kid. It was like a red kangaroo and a black kangaroo, and neither of them had tails, but they both had their own tree or something like that, and they wanted territory or something like that. There was a fight between these two, and one threw a stick at the other one while they were running away, and it stuck in their back and created a tail.
Ah.
So they did the same and threw a stick. I just remember, I could be getting the story wrong because it's been so long since I read this story, but the Dreamtime is filled with these incredible stories about Australian animals and how the echidna got its spikes and how the rivers were formed by a giant snake and stuff like that, like really fascinating stories. And so if there's any Indigenous Australians listening, please collect them up, write a musical that's a spiritual sequel to Just So.
Yeah, why not? They sound interesting, actually.
Yeah, that Just So their story doesn't belong to you guys. Obviously, it's Rudyard Kipling.
Yep.
He's not around anymore, so he's not going to be suing you guys for making a spiritual sequel.
No. When we first wrote it, his estate was still in copyright. So for the first two productions, I think we paid a percentage of royalties to the National Trust, to whom he had left his estate. But then that expired in 1987, I think that expired. So yeah, the first 2 years, we paid something to the National Trust. And I think it was the Kipling of it that is what Cameron latched onto, because he was such a classic English writer. In the same way that he said, I would never have done Cats if it hadn't been T.S. Eliot. He likes it to be some grounding in literature. And with Half a Sixpence, it's H.G. Wells. It's almost like autobiography of H.G. Wells. And he loved that about it.
I had no idea. Anyways, it seems I'm a celebrity. Get me out to an ad break. Oh, because we're in the jungle. I get it. I wrote that before. Anyways.
Another podcast on the Bloop Network is Around the World in 80 Plays with West End theatre stars Lizzie B and Alfie Parker. We join them on the road as they tour the country with Dolly the dog, performing in shows and exploring the local arts and culture, and of course the theatres on the way. And here is a sneak peek.
Bonjour! It's time to go around the world in 80 plays. I'm Lizzie B.
And I'm Alfie Parker.
And we're joined, as always, by our doggy diva, co-host, travel buddy, and fur baby, Dolly! So, what did Dolly do? This week, there is no What Did Dolly Do section, is there, Alfie, which is normally your segment.
It is normally my segment, but it's not there.
But it's for an exciting reason, because this week we have picked up a hitchhiker. She is a bright light of the West End stage who has been seen in The Beautiful Game, one of our favourite musicals ever. Young Frankenstein, which also we both loved. Only Fools and Horses.
Which is an absolute bucket list show of mine.
Wicked. I've never heard of that one. Have you heard of Wicked?
Is that new?
I don't know. Must be new writing. The 39 Steps, Taboo, and more, including her recent stint as the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz at the London Palladium. Have you heard of The Wizard of Oz?
Is that also new?
I don't. But today, she's conjuring up some wickedly funny little stories from her adventures in the national tours of Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Beauty and the Beast, and she was also perfect in Cats. I wish I could roll my R's. That would be way better, wouldn't it? I was very disappointing. Perfect. That was much more. It's sort of Halloweeny, so it's fine. Anyway, luckily, tonight's the night we get a masterclass from this Cinderella because, mamma mia, it's Diane Pilkington. Hello, Diane. How are you?
I'm good. That was fantastic. Amazing.
I feel like some of the delivery was definitely questionable, but I gave it my all. I did it with gumption, which is all we can ask.
It was perfect. Perfect.
See, you can do it. Neither of us can roll our R's. Perfect. So, Diane,
yes.
What has life been like since you returned from Oz?
It has been life. I mean, to be honest, it was a pretty big, should I say whirlwind? Is that cheesy? It was. I mean, it was crazy, crazy, crazy schedule, amazing people, amazing job. I absolutely loved it. But I was so broken by the end of it, like more broken than having been on tour. I can't even explain why. I was on stage for about 17 minutes, but I think being evil is really, really hard work. So I've just been, well, not just been, I have been being a mummy, and my little boy's just gone into year 6. He's really, I think kids really need to support this year. So I've been doing that. And going and seeing shows.
Been all the things we can never do when we're working.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. And I've been relying on the good grace of friends and ex-colleagues for getting me in to see shows, because obviously the other thing we can't do when we're not working is afford to do shows as well. So it's a toss-up, isn't it? You can either afford to go but you've got no time, or you've got loads of time but you're like, really, can I afford 150 quid to go and see that?
Have you seen anything amazing recently?
Yeah, oh my god, I mean, I went to see The Little Big Things. That was amazing. I went to see Diversity last night. I went to watch the lovely Ashley Banjo in Diversity at Aylesbury, and oh my god, that was brilliant. It was brilliant. And tonight we're going to go and watch Jersey in Sunset Boulevard. Come on.
This is what I'm so excited for. I have a ticket for a couple of weeks' time. I'm literally so excited.
Me too. I actually I texted Caroline this morning going, the day is here. So we're looking forward to that one. Bit of a date night.
Oh, and she did a really amazing interview, I think, on the One Show last night, where she was talking about being in theatre and how she's got a newfound respect for it and how hard it is and the amount of work, and she feels like she's like an athlete. So I think that's really good for people to hear someone like her kind of talking about it and being really honest about the amount of work that goes into it.
Absolutely, that's really great to hear, because it is, and I think we take it for granted that we do those 8 shows a week, and you bust a gut and your voice holds out, and you train and all that kind of thing until it all goes wrong and you get an injury or so, and then you suddenly realize how hard it actually is. Because what I find, and I'm getting on a bit now, so I'm a bit older than I used to be, things don't heal quite as quickly, and what I find now is that if my knee goes, then you can guarantee it won't just be the knee. I'll work on that, and then the hip flexor will go because I'm trying to do something, and it's just really punishing, isn't it? Especially doing what you guys are doing at the moment, touring. It is hard work, but brilliant. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. There's a great payoff, but it's nothing to be sneezed at.
We're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by the incomparable Anthony Drewe. Now, you do lots of things so incredibly well, but But what's one normal, everyday thing you're terrible at that everybody else can do perfectly well?
Tidying up.
Tidying up? Yes, me too. Me too.
I actually love living in a mess. And both here and in my house in France, my French neighbors come around and say, how can you live like that? It hurts my eyes. But I know where everything is. I like a house to look lived in rather than looking like a show house.
Yes. Oh my God. I totally get it. Now, in the past year and a half, my room's just gotten so dusty. So I have actually been cleaning up lately. My lungs are so filled with dust, but because it needed to be done. Oh, and I forgot to ask. I'm not sure if you want me to putting it in the episode, but the last time we spoke, you were all badly bruised. For the listeners at home, I did not do it. How's your body though?
Thank you for asking. I'm a month after the accident. I'm not 100% back to normal. I would say the bruising I fell down the stairs,
Yes.
dear listener. In the middle of the night, I fell down into a black void and hit a stone wall.
You are young enough to have fallen down. You didn't have a fall.
No, I know exactly. I didn't have a fall. I just fell down the stairs. It was stupid because there was a problem with the lighting. It was my fault also. I hadn't switched the right fuse switches on.
You didn't turn the light on, in other words.
I didn't turn the light on, and I fell down a dark void, down 8 stairs, into a wall.
Horrible.
And I had to go to hospital for the first time in my life. I had to go into an ambulance, and I had to go into hospital. I didn't stay in.
Smashed your bloody head on a brick wall.
On a stone wall, yeah, solid stone.
Jesus Christ.
So my left shoulder, I think my rotator muscle is a little bit stiff, and my neck is a little bit whiplashed, but all the bruising's gone. And since I saw you, I've driven the 600 miles home to the UK. So, and it was fine. The driving was fine. So I'm no longer on painkillers or any medication, actually. No, I'm fine.
That's all right. You didn't sound like you were on painkillers last time, but that interview hasn't aired yet, obviously. But
I'm very lucky, though. Down there in France, there's one lady in particular who sent me a video of a man in a coma who had fallen in the stairs. And she's the lady who knew the local priest. And she spoke to him, and he said of the last 10 funerals he'd officiated at, 5 had been people falling down the stairs. So I do think I got away lucky.
Jesus Christ.
Could have broken my neck.
Oh.
I could still be there.
Yes. Oh my Godfathers. Instead, you're stuck on this show. You poor thing. Anyways, that's terrible. The mess thing I totally get, and I live. Now, how do you define star quality when it walks into a room?
I personally admire star quality in somebody who doesn't know they've got it. I think for somebody to walk in and assume. I mean, Charlie Stemp, who was our star of Half a Sixpence and then went into Mary Poppins, he had no idea how good he was. And part of the joy of seeing his career take off was how normal he is and how grounded he is. And Cynthia Erivo, to a certain extent, I knew her when she was a student, and she's become this global star now. Mm-hmm. But I remember meeting her at the Menio Chocolate Factory when she was starring there in
Colour Purple.
And she had this big floppy hat on. It was almost like she didn't want anyone to notice her. And I went up to her and said, "You were absolutely amazing." She said, "Oh, thank you so much, sir." And she called me sir. I don't think she knew who I was either. It was just out of politeness. And now she's become this global superstar. But I think what I loved about working with Charlie and working with Sarah Lancashire, another amazing star who likes to keep her private life private and doesn't do all the showbizy thing, is that they come into a room and they don't assume that you know that they're a big star, and they don't act like a star, and they don't put on airs and graces and expect you to kowtow to it. That's what I find. That's what I call a superstar.
I've noticed, like, the really famous people are friggin' tall. They're all so tall. Like Nathan Fillion, he's like 6'8" or something like that, and just staring up at him. And he was absolutely lovely. He knelt down on the ground and drew my nephew. He was like 4 or 5 at the time. He drew him a picture of a Ninja Turtle or something like that. Like really lovely, but bloody 7 foot freaking tall. And past guest Adam Richard, he's like 7 foot or something like that. And I always knew he was tall, but I think that's what star quality is that they're freaking tall. I say that as an average type man.
You tell that to Tom Cruise.
Well, okay, dude, there's always the exception to the rule, obviously.
And that's what I loved about Spielberg. What I was saying is Spielberg didn't act like, "Hi, I'm Steven Spielberg." He was just a regular guy. Through Mary Poppins, I met Julie Andrews. She is an adorable woman. She doesn't act the big Julie Andrews thing. In fact, I spent some time with her in America as well. I've actually known her daughter quite a long time because her daughter runs the theatre in Sag Harbor on Long Island. And that's where we did do the first ever American production of Honk, was at Emma's Theatre. Julie has a house nearby, and she had a house in Hollywood with Blake Edwards. And I went to both of them to work with Julie Andrews on stuff. And she was adorable. And she lived in Brentwood. We went out for dinner with her one night in Brentwood. And it was an Italian restaurant. There was a paparazzi guy outside the door who I guess knew she was going there or something. Anyway, we had our Italian meal with her, and Blake joined us. He was in a wheelchair, but he came in and joined us. And at the end of the meal, the waiter said, "Do you want coffees?" And George said, "Have you got any biscotti?" And it was an Italian restaurant. They didn't have any biscotti. And Julie said, "Oh, well, yes, I love biscotti too." Well, the next day we were working also in Brentwood with Ron and Dan, who we wrote Betty Blue Eyes with. And a car pulls up outside, and a delivery man came in with a box of biscotti and a card in it saying, "Love from Big Jules." And she had sent us a box of biscotti because the night before we'd said how much we liked biscotti. It was so sweet.
Goodness gracious me. Did she smell like perfection?
She is perfection.
She is perfect.
She's a very, very nice lady.
She's not practically perfect. She is perfect.
She is perfect.
Full stop. Anyways, well, that's a great segue because I don't know if it's probably a very personal story to tell. When I was a little kid, like really little, I mean like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, because we moved out of that house when I was 9, right? So it was anytime I talk about that part of my life, it was like before I turned 10. There was a young girl. Well, she was maybe 10 years older than me. Her father, this is a very graphic story, so I apologize. Trigger warning. Her father, when she was a baby, was throwing her up in the air and the ceiling fan was on.
Oh.
Yeah. She survived, obviously, because, you know, I knew her. But she was left very damaged from that.
Oh, my goodness.
And myself and other, you know, friends on the street, we used to hang out with her all the time and we would watch Wizard of Oz, Grease, sometimes Rocky Horror, and Mary Poppins. And so I always think of her when I watch it. I've seen this movie thousands of times like we all have, but I don't know where she is now. Her name was Jodie. I don't know if she's still alive. I don't know what her condition's like now.
What extent of damage was done to her?
All I can remember was she had a shaved head and scars like all across the head, but she was like mentally disabled from it.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, I'd have to ask my parents what the full story was. Yeah, she was only like 4 or 5 houses down from us.
Wow, that's horrific.
Yeah. She was 10 years older, but she was at our level mentally. And as we grew up, and obviously I moved away, but as we matured, we spent less time with her because her parents didn't want kids to outgrow her and stuff like that. And also she was, you know, hitting 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so Mary Poppins was something that gave us all, but especially her, such joy. But what you guys did was phenomenal in terms of, like I say, people set out to make a musical. That's already the default. What world are we in? Where are we? We're in the world of Disney's Mary Poppins. Now, we put that on stage as it is. Yeah, okay, that's boring. You actually turned it into a proper musical that belongs. Everything fits in there perfectly, especially Temper Temper.
You're a fan of Temper Temper.
Oh, that's a great song.
I know.
What happened?
So Richard Eyre was humming and hawing as to whether he was going to take the job or not. And when we wrote Temper Temper and played it to him, he, to this day, says, that is the song that made me do the show.
See?
And then that was the song that they cut.
Why?
I know, it was really sad. And it was a hard one to write. It wasn't the last one we wrote, but it was a hard one to write. Because we were going, Practically Perfect was the first song we wrote, which is the most Sherman-esque. And Temper Temper is probably the least Sherman-esque. And we were just pushing the envelope a little bit with that one. And Cameron was very keen that we had a darker side because there's a darker undercurrent in a lot of Pamela Travers's stories.
Yes, she was a very moody woman.
Yeah, she was an extraordinary woman.
Yes. Oh, yes, I don't deny that. But she was very moody.
I didn't meet her, but Cameron did. In his meeting of her, that she decided, yes, she would relinquish the stage rights to him, which she'd kept away from Disney for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has always felt like he is the keeper of the crypt, who has to look after her wishes as much as the demands of the production.
Yeah,
it was an extraordinary experience doing Poppins, and I remember saying to George, if we get this right, no one will know we've done anything, and if we get it wrong, we're going to get the blame.
Oh no, I totally know every single note. You talked to Caroline about Disney had people sitting there going through every note and syllable that you guys added to it.
Yeah.
As a Mary Poppins fan who has seen that movie thousands of times, I could tell you exactly every word and syllable and note that you guys added in there, you know, because I know it so well. And
Yeah.
Supercalifragilistic is only 2 minutes long,
Yeah.
and you added so much to it and so much character to it, but it belongs both in your canon and it belongs in the Mary Poppins canon.
Sure.
Because what you guys did was so remarkable. But I'm curious, was there ever discussion about including the I Love to Laugh scene? Because that's everyone's favorite.
There was discussions about including every song from the film. Although we had already written Practically Perfect, we wrote Practically Perfect because we had heard from another producer that our names were being bandied about as possible writers. And we said, well, let's clinch the deal by writing a song. We went and bought the video, we watched it, we thought the moment that Mary measures the kids was a missed opportunity. And so we wrote Practically Perfect in as much of a Sherman style as we could. And we delivered it to Cameron. He loved it and he said, can you write another one? And we wrote another song, which didn't make it to the stage show because at this point we didn't have a script. We just had a film. And are they going to put more songs into the film? And what are they going to do about the animated sequences? This was in 1994. The show opened in 2004. So 10 years went by between us writing Practically Perfect and actually hearing it in a theatre. But in the interim, Tom Schumacher, who had become head of Disney Theatricals, flew over on his own dollar to say, look, let's just not talk about contracts and who owns what and whether Pamela Travers wanted this or didn't want that. Let's just see what we want the show to be. And went and stayed with Cameron, and after a long weekend decided they both had kind of the same vision for the piece. And they had cobbled together a synopsis, which was 64 pages long, which is, you know, almost the length of a script. And it was chunks of dialogue from the film and chunks of dialogue from the books and lyrics from every song in the film. And then ideas of where new songs could fit. And they had like maybe 3 ideas. They'd already got Practically Perfect, but 3 more ideas of where songs could fit. And every song in the film was in there. And gradually, once Julian Fellows came on board and started shaping it into a 2-act structure with some sort of a climax at the interval and, you know, a happy ending and everything, we started having to lose some of the songs. I Love to Laugh we lost because in a discussion with Bob Crow, the designer, and Richard Eyre, they said, look, we're going to already fly Mary in on a kite and we're going to do Bert walking around the Procini March and we're going to have Mary flying out from the stage across the audience's heads. We've kind of done flying. And all I Love to Laugh is going to do is going to slightly preempt the flying, and it's just another use of wires and another complication on the set. So that's why that one disappeared. The very last one to disappear was Go to Sleep, the one where Mary is saying, stay awake. Yeah, go to sleep. I was close. That one.
Yeah, I wasn't correcting you there. I was literally singing it.
No, but I'm glad you did because I'd have felt stupid.
Sorry.
I knew I hadn't quite got it right. And George and I were fighting for it. Almost to the end, we were fighting for it. And even after it had opened, we were still trying to get it back in there to some extent, even if it's only a bit of it. But they didn't want it. In the Temper Temper slot, she now does start by snapping her fingers and they go to sleep. That's as close as we got to preserving that moment in the film.
And it's not that playing the game is bad. It's not that that's a bad song or anything. It's just the Temper Temper is a great song.
Yeah.
And that was the one song, because I listened to the cast album before going to see it, the London one.
Right.
Because I don't think the Australian one was released yet, right? So I knew the songs, I knew the changes you had made, and I knew sort of what I was looking forward to, all the songs from the movie that you had kept in. But of the original ones, I was really looking forward to Temper Temper and how does this play out? And I sat there and I'm like,
It's weird. I mean, people did find it scary a moment when the big toys come to life and everything, but they still do. So it's not like that was the only reason for losing Temper Temper. But we'd opened the show in the UK, we'd gone to Broadway. The next one was in Scheveningen in Holland. And it was the Stage Entertainments who were doing it, who said, we don't have these points of reference of Punch and Judy and the various very well-known toys like the monkey and the cymbals and the drum and stuff. He said, we don't have those. We don't have that point of reference. So it was literally in Holland that George and I started in a room writing, playing the game. Because, you know, Mary Poppins refers to all the adventures as like, come on, let's go and play another game. So we had that idea and we started working on it. But staging wise, I would say it's more scary than it was when it was Temper Temper, with this great big Punch and Judy judge character lifting the house up. We nearly put it back in again. George and I have always hung on to it because I think we prefer it. When we were doing the most recent revival in the UK, we said to Cameron, how about putting that back in? And didn't get back in.
Cameron McIntosh, please come on my show so I can personally ask you myself and go, please, 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 the back. Anyways, just a few more questions and we'll round it up because we are running a little bit over. I did promise you we wouldn't go as long as Caroline, and don't worry, we haven't yet. That was 2.5 hours.
It was, wasn't it?
We have not gone that anywhere near that long yet. So as a kid, I found Mary Poppins magical, as I mentioned before, especially when she went into the animated world, which again, I didn't miss that in your version. I didn't miss it.
No, well, it was such a hard thing to replicate. You know, it was groundbreaking when they did that. They did it for that. They did it for Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and then of course we had it for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But I think it was the first.
Yeah, didn't miss that, but I missed Temper Temper.
Yeah, Miss Temper Temper. So we kind of replaced. I mean, Supercalifragilistic in the film is really about someone says, "How do you feel, Mary?" and she just sings a song, and they're on a merry-go-round, and the horse leaves the merry-go-round and joins into a fox hunt or something, and you know, it's not actually furthering a story.
It doesn't make sense.
No, especially not with the Cruel Sports League. But we wanted to incorporate dance as a theatrical way of enhancing a song like that, and that's what we did with Supercal. It became a big. I rewrote the lyric to make it all about the invention of language, which was Richard Eyre's idea, and then Stephen Mear, the choreographer, whose partner is profoundly deaf, said, "How about we do like our own form of sign language for the spelling out the word?" And it's always it's one of those high points in the show.
Yeah. Mary Poppins, I find her magical as an adult, yes, but she's also cold. She's very, very cold. So when you guys were casting this show, what sort of balance were you looking for of someone playing the magical with the darkness? And how many people came in thinking that she's just a magical nanny? She's not. She's a bitch. She's a cold, hard bitch.
She's also very vain.
Yes.
And that comes across in the stories. And it also came across in one of the scenes that did get cut between London and Broadway, I think, where leading into Supercalifragilistic, there is a sort of a market where people are saying, "Have a nice rosy apple, rosy like your cheek," or something. And it's that sort of thing. They were flirting with her, basically, and she was putting them all down, but loving the fact that they were noticing her.
Yeah.
And if she passes the mirror, she has to look in it.
Yes.
So she's vain. She's like a white witch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that the stories were written around the same time as Peter Pan was finding its huge popularity. It's somebody flies in through the window, fixes a dysfunctional house, and then flies away again.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Orpheus descending, when a character comes into an environment, brings about huge change and disappears again, and that which I love about a story. So we were very careful. In fact, when I said we wrote Practically Perfect in 1994, the only couplet I changed when the show opened was she used to sing, "There's not a child alive whom I don't love," and she never uses the love word until the letter that she leaves from Mary Poppins with a good deal of love. When she's gone, we never see her use the love word. And that was the one word I changed. It's
because she is cold.
Being cruel to be kind. It's tough love.
Yes.
It's tough love.
Yeah. The last time I did watch the movie wasn't that long ago. It was only a few years ago. But in terms of like your songs, I have them on my playlist, my Broadway playlist, because what you guys did was so freaking good. And I promise you, I didn't need to kiss anyone's ass. Credit where it's due, 100%.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
But yeah, so in terms of looking for Mary,
we saw a lot of people, and Joanna Riding played her at one of the readings that we did. I always played Bert. It was very funny. Every single reading, because I'm from Kent, so I can do a Cockney accent quite easily. Every reading we did, I played Bert. Yeah. And Richard Eyre said, "Ants, I think you're going to have to play it, because I can't think if anyone's going to be able to do it like you do it." And I said, "Well, I can't dance like that, and I've got a fear of heights, so I'm not going to walk up around the wall anyway." We saw a lot of people. George and I had actually worked with Laura Michelle Kelly before, because we did a concert version of our Peter Pan at the Royal Festival Hall one Christmas.
Yeah, with her brothers.
With her two real-life brothers, yeah.
Yeah, I do my research.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't think it's ever been done before or since, that you have a girl playing Wendy and her two real-life brothers are Michael and John. So we'd worked with her. I think she'd already done Whistle Down the Wind for Andrew Lloyd Webber, and Cameron loved her. And we also saw Ruthie Henschel. We saw a bunch of people. Everyone wanted to play Mary Poppins. Some people who were way too old wanted to play Mary Poppins. And we just loved her voice. I've loved every girl who's played Mary Poppins. They've all been amazing. They're all slightly different. They all bring a different degree of austerity to the role. But I remember knowing Laura as well as I did. When she was dressed up as Mary Poppins on stage, I couldn't see Laura anymore. It's the same as I was a friend of Barry Humphries. And when Barry dressed as Dame Edna Everage, even to this day, when I see clips, I can't see Barry. I can only see the character. And with Laura, it was like that. She'd become a different person when she put the wig on. on and the frock on and everything. They've all brought something slightly different to it. I remember when Caroline did it and she opened in Plymouth, the first step of the UK tour, and she was fantastic. Again, a different austerity to the part, a different twinkle, a different nod to the audience, and she kept it together. And it's amazing the reaction the actress gets. And I rushed backstage, and her parents were in, and I rushed backstage to congratulate her, and she was in floods of tears. It was extraordinary that she'd kept it all inside. It's making me cry thinking about it.
Oh, wow. I nearly cried listening to her interview Maria Friedman and Rob Madge this week because I'm like so proud of her. I'm so freaking proud. I mentored her and producing her show, obviously, and I didn't though. Anyways, I hear a lot from actors about missed jobs. So what's the composer lyricist experience with that? Has there been big shows? And
oh my God.
Did you guys ever get asked for Mary Poppins Returns?
No. So there's
you
one.
Should have. There should have.
There's one. I would have loved to have done it, obviously. And I think the only weirdness was that we never even got a call to say, look, we're doing this and this is why it's not going to be you. There was nothing like that. It was just, they're doing another Mary Poppins. And, I know Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman.
They did a great job, but...
They did do a great job. And when I first met him, he said, I hate you. You got the job I most wanted, because he most wanted to write Mary Poppins. And he got his way by writing the film. And I enjoyed the film. There are some bits I enjoy more than others. And because it's based on Pamela Travers's books, I kind of thought, we nearly did that bit of the story. We nearly did the topsy-turvy lady. I like the bath thing when the fish comes out, the porpoise or something comes up out the bath, that first one. I like a place where lost dreams go or something, is it?
Oh, I've only seen that one once.
That was one that we didn't get. There was other ones that we thought we were going to get and didn't. A lot of them were film jobs, actually, because after Poppins had opened on Broadway, we had a flirtation with Hollywood, with a Hollywood agent who was getting us around to every film studio. We absolutely thought we got the Smurf movie in the bag.
Oh, lucky you didn't. Oh, no, that's all right. You didn't miss out on much.
But it was going to be a musical, and it ended up not being a musical. In fact, we wrote a song for it. We wrote a song for Smurfette called Single Girl, because there's only one Smurfette in 100 men.
Is that Sixpence?
My dog, that's Sixpence, just come up behind me.
Hello, puppy.
We wrote a song. We were so pleased with it, and we got Miley Cyrus's backing singers and band to play it for us and record it. We turned up at the Paramount Studios. At the time, it was between us and Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics, and we'd done so much research about Smurf folklore and everything. We went in with loads of ideas and with a song, and he went in with nothing but a hat and dark glasses. And instead of giving us a job, they told him he had to do better, because I guess that's who they really wanted, was a big name,
Yeah.
So we didn't get the Smurf movie, and then the last time I saw Hannah Minghella, she said, if it's any consolation, it's not going to be a musical anymore. So I suppose I felt slightly better about that.
Yeah.
We were up for Kinky Boots.
Yeah.
We were asked to submit. They sent me 3 scenes that Harvey Firestein had written, and they needed songs put in them. One was called The Sex is in the Heel, and there were 2 others. And we were really busy. We were doing like 3 shows at that year. It was that year. I was down in France, and we'd written The Sex is in the Heel, and we sent it in. And Jerry Mitchell rang and said, look, guys, you've done the easy one. I said, I know, because Jerry, we said we were so busy. So I went to the one I thought I can do this. We did it. He said, I want you guys to make me cry. So we wrote another song, which was between Lola and Charlie. It's when Lola locks herself in a toilet cubicle and Charlie's trying to persuade her to come out of the toilet cubicle. And we wrote this duet, which then becomes a quartet because the 2 dead fathers came out as ghosts from the adjacent cubicles, and it became a quartet between the 4 of them. And Jerry rang up and said, okay, guys, you made me cry. So I thought, oh, great, we're in with a real chance here then. And then suddenly Cyndi Lauper came out of nowhere and did it. So we lost that one.
Yeah, I hope you're not offended. I think it does suit Cyndi Lauper's voice more than you guys.
I think it probably does, although I think a song called Everybody Say Yeah, in my mind, is not a lyric. It's like the Rock and Roll Pumpkin again.
In terms of branding wise, I wouldn't immediately pick you guys for Kinky Boots for that particular story. There are many I would, and if I'm offending you, please do tell me to F off.
No, not in the least bit. I actually think if you go back to the film, the Tim Firth film, and the Northampton sensibility of it, I think there's a different musical, a less Americanized version of that story that could work as the musical.
Yeah.
In the same way that when they did the Full Monty and they set it in Boston instead of being set in Sheffield, it became a different animal to what it would have been.
See that? David Yazbek had been on the show, amazing. But if you said Stiles and Drewe doing the Full Monty musical, that would make sense to me, because that feels like a title that would fit into your canon or your voice, your style a lot more.
Yeah, I guess so. It's funny, I never really think whether I come up with an idea for a show or whether we get offered a show. I don't necessarily have an overview as to whether, oh yeah, this is a Stiles and Drewe show. I just try and immerse myself in the story and think, is there a way that I can add to this by writing lyrics for this? And then, to be honest, it's more George or whoever the composer is who is going to give it an identity in a way more than what I'm doing as a lyricist, because that is such a stylistic take on the world. Whereas, I just write in English, and sometimes I rhyme more than I do in other shows, depending on the complexity of the story and the complexity of the character, and whether the character would be able to use that sort of a clever internal rhyme or not. The other thing that we didn't get, which we really thought we got, was Winnie the Pooh.
Oh.
Head of Disney Music, Chris Montan, contacted us and said, look, there's a new Disney animation coming out of Winnie the Pooh.
2011 one.
It must have been. And they're going back to like drawn animation.
Yeah, it's 2011.
Like they used to be, when it's a book that opens and you see a picture of like the shepherd drawings and it zooms in on it and they come to life. And I love Winnie the Pooh.
Me
and
too.
I thought, oh, this could be a shoe-in. We were both working down in my place in France at the time. They sent in the back of a Pantechnicon lorry an envelope, which couldn't get up my little lane in France. And in the envelope was drawings of Winnie the Pooh and the scene in which Winnie the Pooh goes to sleep and dreams about honey. And in his dream, everything becomes made of honey. And we wrote this song called The Honey Dream. And I sang it using my best attempt at a voice of Sterling Holloway, who's the original voice of Winnie the Pooh. Really, really squeaky, Ooh, ooh. Yeah. And we recorded it. We were so pleased with it, and my parents were out in the garden. My mum said, what's that awful noise? It was me trying to be Sterling Holloway. Anyway, we sent it in, and Chris Montan said, oh my God, guys, your song is ready to animate right now, but we need to pass it by Bob Iger and the bigwigs at Disney. And we then get the message that it's between you and another writing team. And there's an eyelash between you. That was the expression they used. And Bob Iger was judging them blind. And they went for the other team. And then Bob Iger said, so tell me, who was the other team? He said it was Stiles and Drewe. He said, oh, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. Yeah. And the team who won it were Bobby Lopez and his wife, who then wrote Frozen.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big loss.
Wow. That I would be kicking myself because, again, here Winnie the Pooh, thank you guys, makes absolutely perfect sense to me. There's a sentence in one of the Winnie the Pooh books, I couldn't even tell you which one it was, but it's a sentence that just goes on and on and on and on and on, and it sort of tongue-in-cheek comments that it's the world's longest sentence or something like that. As a kid, it made me laugh so much. It inspired me to write.
Oh, wow.
So it was literally Winnie the Pooh is the reason why I've written plays. And
I love Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, me too.
I love Winnie the Pooh. I was actually once in a workshop of an opera of Winnie the Pooh, in which I played Eeyore. And all I had to do was yawn occasionally and fall asleep.
Oh,
I didn't really have to do much singing.
That's wonderful. Just two more questions. What's been your experience with standing ovations?
Amazing.
Yeah.
George may have said this when he was interviewed by Caroline, but when we wrote our first musical, Tutankhamun, which was on at the Northcote Theatre in Exeter for only 8 performances with a student cast, every performance got a full standing ovation, and George and I had never seen one before. So that was my first and probably my most lasting experience of it, because there's an element of it now that is a bit de rigueur. You go to anything on Broadway and everyone stands up at the end, and it's going that way in the UK too. I mean, if you don't get that, you think you've got a real turkey on your hands.
Yes.
Because you've now come to expect it. And I think what was lovely about the standing ovations we got with Tutankhamun is it was so unexpected. Yep. It's kind of like winning the Olivier. And although we've been nominated for a few others subsequently, we haven't won any subsequently, I've always said to George, it can never be as good as that one when we won it, because we had no idea.
You're up against the Lion King.
You're up against the Lion King and Mamma Mia.
Up against the Lion King. That was Wicked and Avenue Q all over again. Or that was before that. That was the first one of those big things. Yeah, no, I get it.
I do stand up. I sometimes don't want to stand up, but everyone around me is standing, so I feel churlish not to. But it doesn't mean I've loved it as much as I feel like I should love it to stand up.
Do you feel dirty when you're standing up going, yay, I'd love this?
I try to disguise it as no, I need to get to the exit quick.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like, oh, where's my bag? Oh, shit, I dropped my phone down there. No, I hate it myself. I really do. Obviously, there's some performers who do love it because it's an ego thing. And I totally get that. The ego is perfectly human.
I think it means less. That's what I think.
Means
I
less.
think standing ovations these days mean less because it happens every night now, even if you're in a flop.
Yeah. So performers, they don't know when they've gone above and beyond. So, you know, I think it's the antithesis of art. Just chill, kids. So, anyways, last question. When was the last time you live in Britain? So, hopefully, recently. When was the last time you danced in the rain?
Oh my goodness. It's so long ago, I can't remember. Because yes, I do live in Britain. I very rarely go out in the rain because my dog doesn't like it. So on a rainy day.
No, you're not throwing your dog under the bus here, Az. That's not your dog's fault.
What I do like is I've got a terrace with a roof on it in France, open-sided.
Yep.
And I love sitting out there when it's pouring with rain and I'm in the dry and I can smell the rain and I can smell the petrichor, I think it's called, that smell after rain. You look it up, it's a good word. That, a hot road and it starts raining, there's a very distinct smell. It's called petrichor.
Petrichor, I've never heard of that before. Smell after rain.
I like feeling the draft of the rain without getting wet.
Yeah, petrichor. Petrichor.
That's right.
Wow. I learn something new every day.
How do they define it?
I closed it up. Hang on. The distinct earthly smell after rain.
Yeah, I love that. I love petrichor. I love the smell of petrichor. I love the breeze created by rain.
Yeah.
And I like sitting out and hearing it on the leaves and being dry.
Yeah, put like a coffee tin outside my window.
Yeah.
And just love to hear the rain.
And my little great niece I was with the other day, and I was using one of those rain sticks, which is like rice dropping through things, and she just loves it because it's there's something to look at because it's constantly little bits of the plastic, whatever it is, like dropping, but also that sound. But no, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I haven't danced in the rain for a long, long time.
Well, that needs to be rectified. I'll ask guests when was the last time you got your face painted or jumped in puddles or played with Lego, and they're like, never, never. Oh, so long ago. And I'm like, guys, no, we can't end on a sour note.
I know the last time I had my face painted
Yes.
was when we thought we got the Smurf movie, and it was it must have been the Halloween procession down Santa Monica Boulevard, and George and I went as Smurfs. And we had a friend of mine who used to work on America's Next Top Model had made us up, and he'd actually sprayed contours into the blue on our faces.
Wow, you did blue face.
We totally did blue face. You allowed to do that? Probably.
That is terrible. That's not racist, obviously, because who the hell is blue? Anyways, thank you so much. It has been so much fun. It really has.
My absolute pleasure. You're very easy to talk to.
Oh, really?
Feels like you're here in my sitting room.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, tell my parents that because they think I'm difficult to talk to. But anyways, before I let you go, where can people find you on the social medias?
I'm on Facebook as my own name, Anthony Drewe. I'm on X.
And that is with an H. Anthony Drewe.
Yes, it is with an H.
It's, for the listeners at home. Yep.
Yep. And Drewe with an E on the end.
Yes.
And I'm on Instagram and I'm on, what else am I on? I'm on those anyway.
Awesome.
Instagram and Facebook are the ones I use more than the others.
Yeah, and you'll be appearing on Caroline's show Talk Musicals to Me, which is now, I think, out now. Maybe. I think I'm allowed to announce it. I don't know. This might require some editing. Out now on the Bloop Network. And really such an honor to have been asked to be let in like that. So and such an honor to have you on. Thank you so much. I'll let you go. It's been over 2 hours.
All right. Yeah, it has. Yeah, we're doing well.
Half an hour shorter than Caroline.